And we're live.
We're back in. We're seeing, it's working. We can see the audio is working. Rufus and I, is our third time now in a row trying to figure this out, but we just went live on IGTV. And so this video is now also live on IGTV, but we're going to do it again for you on YouTube because you're the most important. I'm kidding. Don't tell the people on Instagram that. Welcome back to another live, Wednesday lives. Rufus and I are going to try and get this Wednesday live show going. So don't forget, usually around 1 p.m. GMT, that's 2 p.m. Central European time, we are going to do these live shows for you, talking about interesting topics, questions that we get asked all too often. And we thought we would answer them in a live context. Anything can happen. Rufus can, give some. I much prefer being live. It's more fun. Yeah. It's more interactive. You get a chance to ask some questions. And
I have a lot of stupid questions to ask you. Or
there's no such thing as a stupid question, Rufus.
Probably not. But I have no background as you have in the VC startup scene, in the business scene. So I have a lot of beginner questions.
Great. Well, that's exactly what we're here for, right? So today we're going to talk about those beginner questions. And they're earlier than beginner questions. They're like, hey, where do I start a company? How do I start a company? Yeah. How much does it cost? Where should I set one up in 2021? So today, that's what we're going to answer. If you're going to set up a company this year, where should you set it up and why?
Yeah.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. And I have the question, like, seriously, where should I start my company? Let's say this scenario.
Yeah.
I have not started yet, so I'm gonna start a company. Mm-hmm. Which country should I start my company? Because I have like no obligation to be in one country, so I can start wherever I want.
Yeah.
What would it be the best?
Well, like anything, and like I always say to founders or entrepreneurs before they really sort of go down that journey, it's what is the nature of the business you want to create, right? What do you want to be an entrepreneur for? Is it for a lifestyle? Do you doing it to make money, which is totally fine? Are you doing it for status? Do you want to be a founder and CEO? Or do you want to solve a massive problem with a brilliant, innovative solution, raise money, hire people, and become the next, on the front of Forbes 30 under 30 or something like that, right?
Okay, so let's take one of them. Mm-hmm. I want to create a lifestyle business. I want to create a thing where I can travel and work.
Because that's one thing I want to make a point about as well, to your point, Rufus, is that you don't just have to be an entrepreneur that has to scale a startup and raise money and hire people. You don't have to do that, right? There's no requirement to do that. I think media brainwashes us a little bit to think that that's the only option when creating a company, right? Today, it has never been easier, cheaper, and faster to create a company of any kind, really, apart from obviously deep tech things. It's still, even in that case, it's a lot easier because the world as it is today is a lot more, technology has made, creating technologies quicker, faster, and cheaper. So we keep having new technologies come out like Squarespace, WordPress, these platforms that allow you to create a website and sell anything online for $20 a month, right? It costs you $20 a month. 10 years ago, it would cost you millions to create that. You have to hire a lot of people and things like that. So firstly, what kind of business do you want to create? Because I think you should start with what kind of lifestyle do you want to have, right? Do you, is it a passion based? Do you want to sort of solve a societal issue, which a lot of great companies do? Or do you simply just want to I want to be able to work, travel, freedom, work for myself? So Rufus, I asked you that question. Do you want to grow and scale a startup? Because it really defines or it filters and reduces your opportunities of where to create a company, right? Because if you want to create a company that you want to raise money, you want to hire people, develop softwares, do innovative, crazy things, you most likely need to be based in a city where, one, you have access to capital.
Yeah.
So there's funds available, there's early stage investors, there's late stage investors. Maybe there's an exit market where you could be acquired by a competitor or another industry partner, for example. You need to have access to partners. Say you're creating a fintech startup, doing something super innovative in that space. You probably want to be based in London. You probably want to be based in Frankfurt, maybe Berlin or New York, because that's where the industry hub is for that. Also, you'll be able to probably hire the right people because often you forget that you need to hire smart people, right? And smart people in those industries may come out of those industries and then work in startups. So yeah, if you want to scale a company and develop something really high growth, you need to be in a market that will allow you to do that without friction, right? Versus creating a lifestyle business or a business that supports your lifestyle, whether it be selling a service, like you've built a skill set, like coding or graphic design or managing social media accounts, which is a very valuable skill set to this day. You can have a couple of clients, maybe people you used to work with or work for, set up your own company, and that's what I kind of think I want to talk a little bit more about today. Where would you set that company up then? And then how would you pay yourself? How much does that cost? And how can you work, remote work and travel, right?
On the cost, I want to ask you a question, because I always imagine myself like, to be comfortable, I need to earn million or millions. What do you think today's culture and places is gonna allow you to like earn a year to be like, explore a lot and live comfortably?
So for me, it's like a trade-off with anything, right? So the trade-off is this, that what is your living standard, right? Yeah, of course, some people need a Ferrari and need 5 houses and a jet, right? Like, yeah, okay, then you probably should start a company, and that'll allow you to make 500,000 to 500 million, right? But for the most part, if you sell a service, a skill set that you're good at, or you sell some form of something online or whatever it might be, courses, etc., you could make anything from 30,000 to 300,000 a year. And to be quite honest with you, I think anyone can live very comfortably on anything within that. Like 50,000 euros a year is a very comfortable income, or 150,000 is also a very comfortable income. You're more likely to save more money then, for example. But ultimately, I think, you need to decide on what kind of lifestyle you want to live and why you want to be an entrepreneur. Like, why are you doing this, right? So that's the big question, because there are different costs associated to creating different companies. And one of my first things I want to talk about, actually, when thinking about where to create a company, is actually, first and foremost, there's 2 differences between where are you a citizen and where are you a tax resident.
Why is that a difference?
Because, for example, I'm a citizen of the United Kingdom, right?
Okay, yeah.
But I'm a tax resident in Norway. I have Norwegian companies. I also have a company in the UK, but that's pretty inactive. It's dormant because I haven't really operated in that for 5 years or so.
Yeah.
But the difference is, because if you are, for example, your example, you're Norwegian, right? So you've been a resident in Norway, but now you're actually a resident in Spain. You're a tax resident in Spain,
right?
I
am.
So you could both create a company in Norway and Spain, like a local, basically, right? Because when you create a company in a country, obviously you need to have an address, you need to be in the system. And unfortunately, most countries and cities aren't quite as advanced as Estonia is, which allows you to become an e-resident of a country and create a company as an e-resident. So you don't actually have to have an address. You don't actually have to visit the country, but you create a company because you need to be a resident in pretty much most countries, if not all countries, in order to create a company. You need to be in their system. You need to be, trackable, traceable from a tax perspective, from a liability perspective, all these kind of things. So you can't just rock up in Germany tomorrow and create a company. You have to go through a process, right? Now, that process in different countries can cost different things. And just as a fun fact, do you know what the top 10 cheapest countries in the world to create a company are? Do you know?
No, what is it?
The number one the cheapest country in the world, and apparently it doesn't cost anything to create a company, it's at zero, is Rwanda or Slovenia. Number 2, South Africa. South Africa apparently also costs like very little, $2 or something to create a company. I didn't know that. Because there's 2 different costs associated when creating a company. There is the fees associated to creating and incorporating, and which are like the fees to the national register. In the UK, it's like £15, I think, or £12 to the company's house. In Norway, it's called the Bonens register, like the business register, and it costs €500, £500 in Norway, for example. Those are the fees. Some of the highest in the world. Venezuela has the highest fees in the world for creating a company.
How much is it?
€10,000 roughly, £10,000. Yeah, crazy. I didn't know that, right? And then, but interestingly, in Europe, the 5th most expensive country in the world to create a company is Italy. Didn't know that. It's about $3,500 or so. Now, the other cost that is sort of a hidden cost of creating a company, but is not a cost because it doesn't actually, you don't have to pay that, is share capital. So for example, in Norway, whilst it only costs you £500 or €500 to start a company, the fees, or 550, you have to basically create a bank account and put €3,000 in that bank account to create a company. So, and that's called the share capital, right? And the UK, it's like £1 per share. So it's £1 share capital. In other countries, in Denmark, it's like in €1. In Germany, it's 25,000 for a GmbH. You have to put 25,000 euros. Now, the only difference is why that's not seen as a fee is that is actually seen as that's in the business bank account. So you can basically transfer that from your own personal account, create the company, go through the process, and then immediately transfer that to yourself as a salary. You'd have to obviously pay salary taxes and stuff, or you can use that as business expenses. So, it's not seen as a direct cost, but it is a cost associated that you should factor in because you need that money to create the company, right? Now, there are other costs associated with this. Now, running costs. Now, I have 3 Norwegian companies and I have accountants, and they cost me anything from 20 to 30,000 a year to keep, right? Which is expensive. No, 30,000 Norwegian kroners, not euros.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, you know, yeah, 2,000 to 3,000 euros a year to keep. So I have 3 companies that cost me almost 10,000 euros a year just to hold those 3 companies, right? And that's without that I have to make the money anyway to pay them, right? Before I pay myself or anything. So bear that in mind, that there are costs associated to creating companies that you should definitely factor in your decision about creating a company. What else, Rufus? Ask me another question.
Will it be as easy? Like, I have residency in Norway.
Yeah.
Would it be most easy for me to do it in Norway? And what should I do if I don't want to do it in Norway?
Well, I think you should think about it this way as well. Like when you're creating a company in a country, you're effectively making a commitment to that country, a tax commitment to that country, right? So you're saying that, hey, I am going to basically pay you some tax. I'm committing to pay you, whether it's corporation tax, dividend tax, employee tax, because a lot of people don't realize this, by the way. And I was actually quite surprised when I learned this, that pretty much most countries, you have to pay a percentage of the income of the person you're hiring. The company has to pay, not just the tax. So I'll give you an example. Say, just for argument's sake, make it easy. This person, I was paying myself out of my own company 100,000 a year, euros a year, right? So in Norway, it doesn't cost the company 100,000 in salary every single year. It costs the company 114,000.
Wow.
Because in Norway, there's a 14.1% tax on the gross salary of an employee. So if I employed myself and I paid myself 100,000 a year, I would actually have to make 114,000 to pay myself 100,000. You get that?
Yeah,
so it's something
that
you
makes
should
sense.
to remember, like when you pay yourself. Now, the beauty of obviously creating your own company is that you can obviously put some justifiable expenses through the company. So for example, us working in traveling and me having a Norwegian company, we're in my living room right now, right? Our studio's here. We have the editing equipment, everything here. So I could realistically and justifiably put some of my rent through the company, say 30%, 40%, maybe even up to 50%, because we use that equivalent space in the apartment for work.
Yeah.
So I could actually pay some of that through the company, therefore reducing the amount of money I have to pay myself because I'm not having to like cover all my rent with my own income, right? So that's a beautiful thing about creating a company. Sometimes you could put some expenses through there. Like if we're going to dinner tonight, it is actually technically a business dinner. I could actually technically put that through the company as a business expense because we're meeting a guy to talk about a video we're going to make next week. And you know, it is that. So I could put that whole dinner through the company because it's a business expense, right? So there are also a lot of tax benefits to creating your own company, even if you do very little work through that company, right? Yeah.
But also,
what else? Keep it going.
If I want to create a lifestyle company,
yeah,
and I want to travel at the same time,
yeah,
and I'm gonna be self-employed,
yeah.
One thing, how long can I stay in a country without actually paying tax to the company?
Yeah.
And number 2, is there any limit on where I can go?
Yeah. So first and foremost, this applies to everyone, by the way. If you are a tax resident in one country and you are traveling in another country whilst earning an income from abroad, if you stay in that country for more than 183 days, the country you're staying in that you're not a resident in and you're just visiting can, if they would like to, claim some of the tax for your time there. So they could say you've been here for over 6 months. And you're earning a salary, you're benefiting from our system. Even if you don't register yourself in the system or anything like that, they could, if they wanted to, and they were tracking that, say, hey, Rufus, you owe us 6 months of tax. What's your income? Wow. What they would do is they would say, hey, this is how the process would start. They would say, prove your income. How do you live? And you could say, well, I'm a student. Okay, well, that's fine. Your parents are supporting you. Show us a bank statement. Or if you actually have an income, then they could say, well, actually show us your income. You're like, well, I earn 100,000. Well, 50,000 of that you've earned in our country. Yeah. Especially if you have customers in that country as well, then it really becomes like easy for them to say, hey, you pay us that. The good thing about living in the EU is that we have a double tax treaty. So pretty much most European nations have, you wouldn't have to pay double tax. Like you wouldn't have to pay tax in 2 countries. You would just have to prove that you've paid tax in one country. And then obviously if you live here for longer than 6 months, you might have to claim your tax back from Norway because you haven't been in Norway and then pay it to Spain or Portugal where we are, for example. Okay. So that's where it gets a bit complicated.
So that out of the way, can you live wherever you want to live? What should you consider if you have a lifestyle business and traveling, say Europe?
Yeah, so what you should first and foremost consider is where's your customer base? Like, the dream case is to be able to get a bunch of Norwegian customers with a Norwegian company and then work in Spain or Italy or France and for no longer than 183 days each, right? So you stay as a resident in Norway or wherever else, and then you live in these beautiful climates and locations, but you keep those Norwegian customers or whatever. Bear in mind, you're going to be spending in different currencies, so you need to think about that kind of stuff. We've got a video about that, about, your finances while traveling. But the question is, if you're going to hire, if you're actually going to create like a scalable startup, you need to think about where's the investors, where are your employees, like future employees going to be, and things like that. Also, you need to think about, just basically what kind of lifestyle you want to live, to be honest with you, you know. But there's a thing called the Estonian e-residency. I know I've touched on that a little bit, which I think is a really great way for any person today. And maybe we could finish with that, actually, like some of the top tips on if I were to actually start a business like you've just said today, where would I do that? And I would most likely, first and foremost, think about setting up a company where I'm a tax resident in, because I'm paying tax to that nation anyway. Everything's in the same system. It's all okay. So that could be easier because I'm already in the system. Maybe I'm registered to an address. However, if you also want to do something really new and unique and innovative, look into the Estonian e-residency, create a company through them. You manage it all online. It's all very streamlined. And that's one thing I forgot to mention is how digital it is. So for example, setting up a company in Norway is super digital. It's all in English as well. So it's, for me, it's easy because I have the national insurance number there and all that kind of stuff. I have the login systems. But if you do it through a, like set up in maybe in Italy or France, or maybe not France, but Portugal, I've heard that it's quite bureaucratic. You probably have to hire, it's not in English, you have to hire a local lawyer. So that could be another cost. So I've mentioned it maybe costs, even if it costs under 500 euros to create a company here, you might have to add on 1,000, 2,000 of legal fees because you have to hire lawyers and accountants to help you through that entire process.
Wow. Where would you start your business?
So let's finish that up. So where would I start a company today if I was doing the example of being a kind of digital nomad, location independent, right? I would definitely start a company. Firstly, where I'm from probably is the easiest thing to do. Luckily, I'm from the UK and from Norway. So those are relatively cost effective and decent systems. Thinking about also like how much tax you have to pay in those countries. Also the tax, what you get for those taxes. And I would do that and think about e-residency as well. And because, you don't always have to have a company from where you are living, right? Like that's not always a given. And if I was going to create a scalable startup with an innovative product and I had to hire people, I would go to where my customers are. I would go to like the same kind of, I would go to where their labor force is. I would go to where the money is, basically. Because that would mean that I could scale up streamlined.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, cool.
If you have any more questions, let us know. Write in the comments for new questions for next week. We're going to do this every single Wednesday. And thank you so much. I hope you got some value out of this. We'll put some links below to some places where you can find out which countries it costs what to create a company. And thank you for watching this first live stream. Our first one. I hope it was okay. Let us know how to improve. I think I spoke a bit too quickly, but I'm definitely quite excited about this topic. Have a nice day. What do we say to the lovely people?
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe to our channel. Like and subscribe. And we're going to end the live stream here. Ciao.
Bye.
Cool.